Thanks, everyone, for joining the Adaptive Cards Community Call, the July 8th, 2021 edition. I'm Matt Heidinger. I appreciate y'all being here. We're going to hand it off. I'm not going to be doing much talking this month. We're going to hand it off to Tim Cadenbach, a Microsoft MVP, who's been working on a VS Code extension and a community website that's got it's just a lot of great content for adaptive cards developers, so he's going to share us around that. But before we get to that, I want to introduce real quickly two new PMs working on the adaptive cards team. So the adaptive cards team is growing. That's really exciting. So first off is Rahul, and do you want to say hi real quick, Rahul?
I just joined from the Azure team. I was a software engineer over there, and I'm excited to join here. When I was learning about adaptive cards, I leveraged a lot of Tim's work, and I went through madewithcards.io, and there's a lot of goodness there. So I'm looking forward to seeing the man himself present the work.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Rahul. JP,
Hey everyone, I'm JP. I'm also a new PM working on adaptive cards with Matt and Rahul. We both sort of joined the team about 1 month ago, and we're eagerly learning, and today will be just another learning experience as well. I'm excited to be on the team.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, you guys. We're excited you're here as well. So, Tim, let me just add a spotlight here. Tim, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. So, my name is Tim Cadenbach. I guess some of you might know me. So the CH at the end is a German thing Matt will probably never be able to pronounce correctly, but that's fine.
I try it every so often, but yeah, I know. I try. I try.
You try, yeah. Well, I'm an active community member for probably 2 years now. I don't know, maybe even longer. A little bit more than a year ago, I created that website madewithcards.io to help the adaptive card community in general, make things easier, make things more visible for people. If you have any question, just put it in chat, raise your hand. I try to have a look at it. We want to. I would love to have that more on a conversational level, and not me just presenting it all the time. So if you have any question, just interrupt me or whatever. Matt will probably do something as well.
Yeah, we'll monitor the chat, and also feel free to raise your hand. I think Tim, as he mentioned, wants a little more of a conversational community call this time, so feel free to raise your hand when you need.
Yeah. So the page, and that's why we are talking about it right now, got quite a bit of an update lately. I don't actually have the old version, so I can't compare it, but that's the current version of the page, and the old version had a lot of things just static in HTML code. It was really just quick and dirty put together just to have something. And then I took the time to do it a little bit more properly, and yeah, here we are. So basically, one of the biggest things on the page is that we have a lot of adaptive cards you guys can use as samples. You can just copy them, do whatever you want with them, and we are frequently adding a lot more cards, and all the cards are actually stored in an API you guys can even use with simple REST calls, and I explain a bit more about that later. So yeah, we have a lot of cards on the page. You can do to kickstart your development, whatever you do. There's a lot of tech demos. Actually, we can go to that. We have a lot of cards are more to explain how things are working. So this card, for example, is that's a card that's opened actually pretty often. Explains all the markdown things you can do in adaptive cards. Just one of the examples. With all the cards, you always have the rendered card in 3 different scales, so you can actually see the difference. We have the template of the card. We have sample data in case there is any sample data. That was a bad mistake. Let's try this one. Probably should have sample data. Yeah, okay, it's not much, but yeah, there's sample data. And yeah, pretty much that. There's another tech demo we have on the page, just showing different date formats you can use in adaptive cards. So on the page, we have like a lot of cards made by me or some community members. We have all the demo cards, which are on other websites as well. We have all the tech demos here, demonstrating various things like fun stuff. That was around Christmas this year, I think, where we just built a little fancy Christmas tree with adaptive cards. So even that is possible. Like it's just a fun thing, but yeah. Or we had that. We had that build logo. Wasn't too good, but we still, sort of. We had that build logo also. That's an adaptive card. So you have the full template here. It's just column sets and columns. Yeah, but that's also on the page. So there's tech stuff demonstrating various functionalities. Like here, that one that was actually sent to me by a community member. So you can toggle that card. You can toggle metric between imperial values. It's just demonstrating another thing you can do in adaptive card. So there's a lot you can find here based on the technology itself. And then we have like some cards. I think here's one example in here. Yeah, that's a card specifically made for Microsoft Graph. So whenever you use Microsoft Graph people endpoint, this card will match the data in there, so you can directly render that. And we are constantly extending that, so there's more cards frequently. Like I'm not sure, not every day, but I'm frequently adding more cards. And there's even a couple of community members sending a card now and then. So the other thing that is, I already got pretty good feedback for what is the whole getting started section. It's not complete yet, only the first 2 chapters really. But what we wanted to have is like, or what I wanted to have is like an easier start for people to get into the technology. One of the things we noticed with adaptive cards is there's a lot of things you can use cards for, like in Teams, in Power Automate, in Office 365, in some place like in Outlook. It's used in the Windows timeline, and there's a lot of places. And if you look in Microsoft Docs and Microsoft Learn, you're pretty much lost when you're completely new because there's like too much content, and it's really not that easy to find like, oh, I want to render a card in Teams and I have to go through all these other chapters, and it's really hard. So I wanted to have a really like proper experience for people who want to start with the technology. So I made these, and I separated in these categories first of all. Probably will change that. That's more of a living thing right now. So we have you just give me the basics, like what are adaptive cards, what's the technology behind, how does it work, and all that. And we always have, or I always added like learn content. So on the left side you always have Microsoft Learn sessions you can go through to actually learn about that. We have recommended blog post. That's Thomas. He's actually in the call as well. That's blog post by community members mostly explaining things we think is great for you to read pretty much. And then we also have links to the official documentation. It's just like, yeah, a guideline to help you find the content you need pretty much. We have the same for Microsoft Teams and Office 365. That's again, that's the same chapter from the other, but here that the other 2 chapters are about, using cards. Well, all these have at least parts with adaptive cards in it. There's no distinct learn modules which are really about only adaptive cards in Teams. It's always like some other things you learn there as well, but it definitely might make sense to go through these. And again, we have a couple of blog posts and links to official documentation. I think is a good thing. The other 2 sections are not too complete yet. There's still things we have to add, but that's a growing thing. And for all these sections, if you rather want to watch a video, we also have a few YouTube videos linked that also explain things in the category. So adaptive card, like in general, like, and the Teams section has a couple of videos about how to use cards in Teams, or how to use a card in a bot. I think I even have something here. Oh yeah, we even have videos like how to use cards in Power Automate. So based on videos, there's quite a few, and all these are sort of handpicked. Sounds weird sometimes, but I watched all of these, and that are those where I say, okay, you can actually get a few things from them, and you can actually learn a few things by watching them. And the other thing is that's pretty much the section which is Well, it needs to have a lot more love. But we also have a section with tools, and the tools section is pretty much just stuff for adaptive cards. So we have a couple of like adaptive cards for Flutter is made by Neohead. It's a German company. That's a library that you can use adaptive cards in Flutter. We have web components that allow you to use adaptive cards any way you like in HTML. Adaptive cards for Blazor, a SharePoint web part that allows you to render adaptive cards. So that's all tools that makes it easy to use adaptive cards in some content or in that regard in the Adaptive Code Studio thing. Like, yeah, that's an editor we're gonna talk about soon. Anyway, so like we have a lot of tools here, but I want to have more here. So if you have anything you want to add to the list, just ping me whenever, and we add that. So I have to say that the whole thing should be a community thing. So if you have anything to add, if you build a great card and say, hey, like I want other people to use that, that's not my page. The page is for the community, and you can yeah, I'm more than happy with everything you guys send me if there's anything you want to send.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, there are so many things in here that fill in gaps on the main website, from just the getting started, just coalescing all the tools and the card upload. It's pretty awesome stuff. So definitely I encourage everyone to sync with Tim, reach out however possible. And it just fills in so many awesome gaps.
Yeah. Just one thing that might help you as well, because that's not as simple on other pages. Like all the cards you see, like you can, if you don't like the dark page, you can even have the page in a light mode. Just a fancy thing everyone needs to have these days, I guess. But you can also change the card layout itself. So if you say, oh, look, how does a card would look in a light mode? Yeah, that's how the card would look in Teams Light. Or that's how the card would look in the Windows timeline, or that's how the card would look in Outlook, or with some really fancy, strange colors as well, just to see. Like,
Tim, there is one question. Davies, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Hello, this is an amazing site, so congratulations. It's great to see it grow. On your where you can do the templates and show previews, is there anywhere that we could see what a 1.4 card would look like? Like, is there any way that we can view 1.4 cards? Because they aren't supported in the list here. What are the options to see what a 1.4 card works? Is there anything on the site?
No, not really. Well, the card itself, the page itself is already using 1.4, so I'm pretty much always using the latest available renderer. So and I think the cards.
I can also help answer this a little bit. So if you open Designer, I think you just link to the Adaptive Cards website there, yeah. Right? So when you're actually building cards, we do have a little bit of so right there, that target version, you can change that to 1.4 manually, and then you'll be able to see any of so if you change that to Teams, it will go back to 1.2. We are working on the full rollout. So Teams is in a little bit of a weird state right now, just to kind of mention. So 1.4 is fully supported in Teams and Outlook, but 1.3 isn't fully rolled out, which I know is a little bit confusing. So we haven't fully updated the website yet. The ideal, what we're hoping to have fixed soonish, as in this summer, is the Adaptive Card website. When you pick a host app such as Teams, it auto adjusts that target version based on what's supported. So Teams currently is 1.2. We could change that to 1.4, but it's 1.4 works, but 1.3 doesn't work. So it's just a little bit of a weird spot we've hit with the different rollouts. So you have to manually change it, but all 1.4 features like action.exe, things like that, they do work within Teams and Outlook. And so the best guidance right now in this state, while it's still rolling out through all the different Teams clients, is to manually change it to 1.4, and then you should be able to use all the features. Does that help, Gareth?
I think so. Because at the moment, if we change it to 1.4 and submit the card, it's not rendering in Teams.
Nope.
It's giving an error.
Even if you set it to the version in there as 1.4 in the card payload itself?
Yeah. When you send a card with version 1.4, Teams doesn't accept it right now, as far as I know.
Oh, that's new to me. I thought 1.4 is supposed to be working. I'm going to test it while we're going. That said, I'll do some testing here. That is sort of separate than what Tim's stuff is showing at this point. So let me do some tests and see what I can find back by the end of this call. And if not, we can also follow up online. And I'll have to also review the blog post that we wrote on Universal Actions that covers some of this as well.
Yeah, as you can see, I have some cards. I knew I have some 1.4 cards. I just don't know where. No idea. That's a 1.3 card, so it has all the labeled stuff in it. It has a couple of regex things for input validation, so that's a rather new card.
Yeah, the input validation stuff will not work. So that's the thing. And input validation is all the 1.3 stuff. So that won't work today, but action.execute should.
Yeah. Well, none of the input validation works in Teams?
Not yet. It is not in all Teams clients. So it's not officially out yet. It's rolling through the rings. And this is where, like, just to be fully transparent, so I work on the core adaptive card SDKs, so I might get some stuff wrong when it comes to like what's officially in Teams. I don't work on the Teams product. I don't work on the Outlook product. So hopefully I'm not giving incorrect information, but I do want to caveat that it might be slightly incorrect based on what I currently know. But I know we are rolling everything out as of now into GA. Like 1.4 just got announced at Build earlier just a month ago, so I think it still might be rolling through. And as Tomasz mentioned, you might need to switch to Dev Preview in Teams for 1.4 to work. That may be the case right now. It is slowly on its way to GA though.
Yeah, you probably have seen that just a second ago, but I have these two buttons here, like Open in Designer, Open in VS Code. The Open in VS Code button I can't use right now because that's not gonna work. But the Open in Designer button will always open the card you're currently looking at in the official Adaptive Cards Designer. So you always get the card that's actually, yeah. You always get the card in the designer, and you can just look at the code here if you want to, or change it or play with it. Yeah, that's pretty much that. There's that small, I probably need to change the label a bit, but there's that small submit button here. And if you click on it, you get a form, and there you can say, hey, like, you just have a question, you want to share some content, or just talk to me or whatever. Or if you click, you want to share a card template, then you have these two fields for the template and for sample data if you have any sample data. And you pretty much just as is take the JSON, put it in there. Same for the sample data and submit it. Currently, I get these added in a database, and I have to look at them. So these cards, don't expect the cards to appear immediately on the page, because there's some, I want to double check if the card is actually saved, and if it's like, it's just to make sure the quality is okay, pretty much.
And Tim, John's got his hand up. John, do you want to unmute real quick?
Yeah, I got just a couple quick questions. The rendering tool, do you have, is this site, do you have the site open source, or can we look at how you're doing some of the rendering within the code? We got some uses for being able to do some of those from a development standpoint, on our own. Other couple other questions are kind of related. One thing is in Outlook, we were always stuck. We're still using 1.0, but we're stuck with a narrow view of everything. Is that us, or is that Outlook? And it seems, I don't know if I have not find a way around it. And then the final question is, in all the tools on the buttons, in the Microsoft tools, the developer site, it always blows our buttons out. When we have the HTML post, at the bottom of our button, or bottom of our cards, it always rips those off of my card, and so that you have to put those back in or keep them separate or something, so that if you're going to use those tools as a guide to development. So kind of a number of questions there, but kind of all related to that design, and that design tool is nice.
Well, I can't answer all of them. I guess Matt will have to take the Outlook question. But so the code of the whole page itself is not open source right now, but the page is actually using the the whole page is written in Vue.js and with the .NET Core backend, and we have that library. Actually, it shares a GitHub link later on. Probably should just share the GitHub. It's also on NPM and everywhere else. And that's what I use for rendering. So at least if you can use a Vue.js library, then that's what the page is using for rendering. If you can't use Vue.js or you use Angular or whatever, at least you can have a look at the that one. At least you can have a look at how the rendering is done here. There is. That's rendering a card is pretty much just that. You have to take the card, you have to like pass the host config, and then you have to do the templating part, and then you just render the card. I get back to that when we talk about the VS Code extension. That might make it a little bit easier. But as long as you can use Vue.js, you can just use the library to render it. And on the other hand, it's just a couple of lines. So rendering a card is actually pretty easy with the libraries. So you have to use the adaptive cards libraries. But
well, I got a guy who knows Vue pretty well. He happens to be on this call, so I'll have him take a look at that.
Yeah, and like you can always, if you want to just reach out to me on the page itself, and we can talk, and I can surely help you if you want to.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And Matt has to answer the other question, I guess.
So I was answering one in chat. I did miss the Outlook question. Can you say it again real quick?
Well, I'm not seeing chat for some reason, but in Outlook, whenever we have cards, we always get a really narrow, like it's always very narrow on the way it displays, and it doesn't use the full message context, the full width. It's like very narrow.
Yeah.
And kind of like the width of the middle card on his site. It always sticks to that. I can't get anything wider. Is that me, or is that the implementation of 1.0?
I think that's just the way it is, and that's ultimately up to the Outlook app to decide. I don't know that they've talked about increasing that. They do have guidance on designing for a mobile view first, so that is you shouldn't have a really width heavy card. In the future, we are looking at adding some more responsive attributes so that cards do reflow a little better between wide and short. We've got a handful of ideas in the pipeline, but that'll be a little ways from now. But for now, yeah, I think you want to work within the bounds of what the Outlook app is restricted to.
We get back to that anyway in a few minutes, because like I have some other thing to show which is related to Outlook anyway. So we might see that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
John, so sorry to just we'll take some broader questions at the end as well. So for these ones, if the questions are on either Made with Cards, or I think Tim's going to get to the VS Code extension, I do want to make sure he has a chance to get through his stuff. Andy, did you have a question around either the site or the stuff Tim has shown? If it's a generic question, we can take it at the end as well.
I wanted to ask about the versioning. You guys said that there's different versions are compatible with different applications. Is there a page that shows all that? Can you post a link?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're at the Adaptive Card Designer, I will post a link, but if people don't have the full chat, if you go to adaptivecards.io, click on the designer, there's a button there that's not, we were just talking about this yesterday, not the most obvious button. It says Host App Docs. That tells you the versions supported within each within each app, and I will paste a link to that. Oh, and Rahul beat me to it. But yeah, that's the page we have today that links those things.
But it lists Microsoft Teams.
And actually,
1.4.
Outlook, I think, should be up to 1.4. The thing that I will say is we are in a little bit of a hybrid state. Like we just announced some stuff at Build, getting both Teams and Outlook on 1.4. The big feature, just so everyone's aware, the big thing we've been working on this past year was what we call the universal action model. So you can have a single card backed by the same backend that can be delivered into Outlook and Teams and actually handle responses. The backend can refresh the card with new state. So I'll post a link to the build talk that goes into some of that. But as you're noticing, Outlook in particular is a very complicated product that has tons of different versions, from their web app to their desktop app to their mobile client. So it is rolling out over time. So bear with us during this a little bit of weirdness, but slowly but surely they will all be updated to 1.4.
So the last part on the page, which might be interesting for you because sometimes they're not that easy to find on YouTube. I always, well, the last one is April because like I forgot to add May, and the June one wasn't online yet. But we always have all the last community calls here, and you can just pretty much go through them in order if you want to watch them. So that's all on YouTube as well. It's just a little bit easier to find here. So yeah, that's that.
Hey, look at that! 1 year ago today, you were on talking about other stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was 1.3 input validation, and that was the first preview of the new VS Code extension.
Now it's real.
Now it's real, exactly. Yeah, the other thing I made for the community, and that's the other thing we're going to talk about now, is like it's even on the page. We have that thing called Adaptive Card Studio, which is a VS Code extension. Yeah, pretty much to make it easy for you guys to work on cards in VS Code. That's a more developer-oriented approach because that's all based on JSON. So if you're just a purely designer guy who loves drag and drop stuff, this is probably not for you. But for everyone else, it truly is. You can easily install it from the marketplace or from VS Code itself. Like people working with VS Code probably know that anyway. As you can see, there's roughly 2,000 users using it already. And I just wanted to give you a quick walkthrough again what the extension is actually doing. So here we're just in VS Code. That's not any special version or anything. That's just regular VS Code. I also have is a fully rendered adaptive card in VS Code. When you install the extension, you get that small adaptive cards icon here, and the extension automatically tries to find all adaptive cards in your open workspaces. So even if you have more than one folder open, it will find all the adaptive cards you have in the currently opened folders. So you don't have to open it manually or whatever. You get all the cards in a nice list. And also for all the cards, you can also add sample data if you want to. So you have the card template that is detected automatically. That's for whatever reason not rendered right now. And you have the card data. And for every card, you can add sample data, which makes it especially nice. So in the team I work with, where we're using cards now and then, it's actually quite easy because we can share sample data that way. We have the card checked in GitHub and all that. So we have the cards in our GitHub workflow, and then everyone is using the same sample data, and that makes things a lot easier. So that's why we went that approach. The one thing I added just recently is like on the page we had all the demo cards, all the tech cards, and all these things, and that's actually in VS Code as well. So all the samples you can see on the website, you can actually open from within VS Code straight away. It just asks you to enter a name, how it should save the card. Shouldn't matter. Then it should actually open the card, and that's loading the card sample straight from the website. So all the cards we add to the website, or anyone submits to the website, people can use directly from within VS Code.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And the other thing that was in the extension for quite a while, but the little fancy icon here was actually not visible, and you probably haven't seen that. It's like right now you can send the card to Outlook just to yourself. Yeah, actually I am logged in, and it should, yeah. There's the card. You can send any card from VS Code to Outlook, and that is actually a 1.3, 1.2 card. Yeah, that's a 1.2 card that's working in Outlook. So Outlook definitely is using 1.2 because otherwise that card wouldn't render. Also, the email.
Outlook web app is full 1.4 and I think 1.3 as well in the web app. The web app's the easiest one to update. the desktop client that's had a long, healthy life is the one that I'm not entirely sure what it's on.
Also included is always like the template you've used and sample data. So you can even like forward the card to someone or whatever you want to do with it really, or see it as an easier way to test a card or something like that. Yeah. The other thing is it's just a tiny little helpful thing. You can always like add a new card, so you can add a new card easily, and there's also if you just go anywhere and create a new JSON file, which I can't do right now. New file. If you create an empty JSON file, you can just use control space, and we have these snippets in the extension, so you can also that way you can get a full adaptive card just to get sort of a kickstart to work on adaptive cards. The extension has full syntax highlighting for anything related to adaptive cards. There's a few more snippets like a simple column set or how to use an image, how to write a small input form like a text block, and that's
I kind of forgot about the snippets you added too. That's pretty cool and the snippets are just like super helpful just to pop in, a chunk of JSON. It's not JSON's. I love the format, but it's not the most easy to type.
No, it's not. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and the snippets are really cool.
Technically, JSON was never meant to be typed. Really, I think it was more like an exchange thing.
Yeah.
Convert. Yeah. Actually, now that I read that from Jing, there is a company, I forgot the name. What was that company we've been in contact with where we had the trouble with the other extension with Matt? Do you remember the name?
Oh, I want to say Asseco, those folks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there is a guy who reached out to me where we don't have it in there yet, but the extension might allow you to write adaptive cards in YAML actually as well.
Oh,
if you want to do that. That's not in here yet, but they actually wrote something that allows you to author a card in YAML, and you can it just converts it to JSON in the background, so you can do both pretty much. So the whole online card thing here is pretty much a first step to something I'm working on. No more internet. Yeah, exactly. So this behind the scenes is using what is already available, just not usable for anyone except me right now, and just 2 or 3 people using that. So we have that made with Cards API. As you can see, there's a couple of public endpoints, there's private endpoints, like get all the cards in the database, get like a specific card in a specific version. There's also endpoints how you can save a card, delete a card, whatever. There's various tools you can use. This one is probably pretty powerful once it's fully implemented. That allows you pretty much to use like a normal card in Power Automate or the other way around. Could be pretty useful for some people. And so the page itself is using the API in the background. VS Code itself is using the API in the background. And one of the next steps I have planned is to extend that so you can actually add your own cards like online and like store your own card templates in the API. So you have them not stored as files, but you have them stored in the API, and you can pretty much use the same template anywhere then. So like from, let's say you're building a flow, in Flow you say, hey, give me my template with name whatever, and it will allow you to just use it you can use the template straight away. You can edit the template here in VS Code and have it updated in Power Automate. And what I would love to know is like all these things, like loading a card online and storing a template online. I would love to understand if there's really a need for that. If you guys say, hey, that's really useful, or what would you do with all that? Do you think that that's a good thing to have, especially the whole online connectivity for cards? Or do you say, oh no, we don't like that anyway, I wouldn't use it? Do you have anything on your mind about that? Does anyone have an opinion you want to share with that maybe?
Tim, I definitely think there's a use case for it. We built a very similar service that we kind of call our template service that, stores cards and versions them and, does all of those magic things. So, I mean, I think we're probably solving the same problem. You're solving it for a broader community and we're solving it for quite a specific use case.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing. Like, there's one more thing I can show you. The team behind the App Studio in Microsoft Teams, they have that new page, dev.teams.microsoft.com. It's pretty much a collection of development tools for Microsoft Teams. Like there's a couple of sample apps, there's the documentation for Teams, and they also have these tooling section. And the tooling section has an adaptive card editor where you can add adaptive cards here. You can add a card, you can save the card, and you can use them later. It's pretty much that right now. And you can actually send the card to yourself in Teams. That's here as well. So you can build a card here and send it to yourself in Teams. That is actually something I want to add to my extension as well. So like I even have ideas to talk to these guys if my extension maybe would allow you to edit the cards straight away here, and then you would it would be possible to actually send a card to Teams from VS Code. So yeah, that's the idea. And interestingly, you're not the first I hear who is working on something similar. I mean, even the adaptive cards team was working on something like that a while ago. It never really.
Yeah, we had some interns building the CMS. That was also about a year ago. This pattern is there's clearly something to this pattern, and we're slowly kind of coalescing around what type of integration should we get to. I think there's just so much potential that we'll really start to see over the next year, where you've got this card registry here. If I'm a professional developer, all these cards, it seems like I should be able to access these programmatically from VS Code and use them in my bot, fill them with data. I've got the template, fill it with data. So you can certainly imagine a world where Adaptive Card Studio connects to this, fetches them, and it's a nice integrated experience. And the other half of that for maybe non-professional developers is you could imagine Power Automate flows and Power Platform stuff also tapping into this collection. It's all about grabbing a card template, filling it with some data. You either do that with code or you do that with a Power Automate flow. So it's exciting to see all these investments come together, solving specific problems, and then over time, I'm really excited to see the patterns that evolve and the integration we can see between them.
Yeah, it would be great if there was like an enterprise, so something you can implement on the inside the enterprise. I mean, we're doing a lot of card development that's very specific to our business functions. If there was a way to just have an internal enterprise, repository, that would be really slick. But
yeah, the one thing I was thinking about, I mean, it's not in the state where I can give it to people really, because there's quite a few things in the background I have to do. But it's definitely possible to get something like, let's say, a Docker container or whatever, and you can host your own API on Azure. So that's definitely something I was thinking about, to give the API out to people. So
that would be fantastic. Because I mean, a lot of this stuff's great, but in the enterprise environment, spending time building these sorts of things is great, but if somebody else has already invented the wheel, why do I'm trying to get the business, keep the business running.
The one thing that makes me curious, I mean, I know how things are in the enterprise business, especially with German limitations and all that. But if we're just talking about a template itself, is there any limitations around that? Are you like, oh no, we can't share our templates because even the templates without data are too secure, too limited, or is that not a thing?
I don't know. Empty data. Some of our applications are kind of proprietary. I mean, I don't necessarily want to necessarily have that information that we're using, the structure, because it kind of gives up your database structure and some of that stuff when you build a card. But JSON is kind of your JSON data kind of conveys your structure. So I'm not sure some of it, yeah, no problem. It would be a big deal to publish outside, but I'm not sure it'd be any value to anybody else. But some of it, I'd be a little apprehensive about, pushing outside the organization.
A lot of this is going to need some thinking about to actually implement components, because components need to have a home somewhere when they're pulled into cards. Matt, is there any update more broadly on how components are coming along and when we might see them?
Yeah, there's not yet. So Rahul, that was one of the PMs I introduced earlier. That's one of the things on deck for what we've got for 1.6. There are two big things with adaptive components, which I know we haven't talked about a little bit. I'll give a quick lap around them. They're a pretty exciting evolution for adaptive cards to allow you to have these reusable building blocks and inject them into your cards. And there's two big components that we need for that to work. They heavily require templating, which means we need the templating SDKs finished. We don't currently have mobile templating SDKs for iOS and Android. And so we're still figuring out when we can resume work on that. And the second piece is what you were asking is, where are those going to live? We've got some basic ideas that we think they live in a GitHub repo, that they're just served statically, and that host apps would be able to configure that. But those are the two big questions. So I don't have any major updates on that. But as we're wrapping up the 1.5 release, hopefully we'll get that out in the next couple of months, and then that'll roll out to Teams and Outlook shortly after that. That'll let us get into 1.6, which is the big feature in 1.6 is going to be adaptive components.
Wasn't that somewhere here? Was that the extension thing I just had, or wasn't that somewhere?
The components feature?
Yeah.
I think you'd have to search for it. I think it's issue 4313. I type it up so many times I think I have the number memorized, but
what's that for?
I might be wrong on that, but I thought it was something like.
Nope.
Well, that's another one I type in all the time, 4313. I don't have an update on that just yet.
But definitely,
it is something we're going to need to solve.
Yeah. So I already have like plans and ideas how to do that. There's like tiny little bits of code on my end already. So made with once the component thing is live and working, then I will definitely have a component section here as well, and there will be a lot of things you can use on the website as well. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, the idea is that you just have like an idea of a template, and then you go to your bot framework, and in the code you just say, hey, I want to use template 500 whatever, and in Power Automate you just use the same template, and then you change it once and it's updated everywhere. I mean, I think Tomasz was someone who told me a couple of stories how difficult it can be if you want to update a card in Power Automate. It's not that simple. And if the card would come from an online source and you can update it easily and it's updated in all your flows, that would make things a lot better, I guess. So.
Yeah, we're definitely at the cusp of a lot of stuff coming together. And this is the normal thing. People build technology to solve their problems, and then we identify patterns, and then we bring those patterns into the the broader system. And I think we're really finally at the point where we're going to start making some traction on that stuff. And expect to review that stuff with you guys at the community call. So we'll definitely have some early drafts to sync on, and it'll be good for the folks, Gus, like yourself, if you've already invested somewhat into this, to make sure we can share learnings from that as we go as well.
Yeah.
And Alexi, I see your hand up.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought we're coming to the end of the call. Tim,
yes,
amazing presentation. I really love to learn what you've done. Unrelated question, and I'm sorry if I'm missing something because I'm relatively new to adaptive cards. I posted that question on Stack Overflow, didn't get a lot of traction, but my question is, with actions open URL, is there only HTTP and HTTPS supported for the schema? And the reason why I'm asking, I was hoping there is a Office URI protocol is supported, MS Word colon type of things, which allows to open the file directly in MS Word or Office applications. There's a separate protocol for that. Is that supported?
So the challenge is I can't really give you a great answer on this. The way the adaptive card library works is it's just a URI to something. The host app that's running the card, that could be Outlook, that could be Teams, they're responsible for doing something with it.
I see.
And so you might get a different outcome depending on the app that it's in.
Understood. So I'll just resort to the trial.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That is the yeah.
If I'm not completely wrong, Microsoft Teams actually is parsing the URLs and sending them through some sort of filter or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly. Like they may be. That's why I can't really speak with any kind of confidence. And even if I could, it's subject to change.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that it's up to each app to interpret what actually happens when you click that button.
Understood. Thank you, guys. That's
sure.
all I have.
Thanks. So let me say a quick closing. I actually, unfortunately, normally I get to stay for a few minutes. I will have to stop right at this. Tim, thanks a ton for this presentation. Thank you all for an engaging conversation. I think this was really great. This is what I like to see these community calls for. Tim, I think we got your wish. We got a little bit of you presenting. We got some conversation. So again, Thank you all for engaging. JP, Rahul, welcome to the team. And please join us next month, August 12th, 9 a.m. PST, Pacific or Daylight Time, whatever we're in. And we're here on the second Thursday of every month. So thanks again, everybody. And we'll stick around for maybe one question or so. And if we don't get to it, please go to our GitHub, github.com/Microsoft/AdaptiveCards. File an issue. We've got additional support there. Thanks for your patience along the way, and we'll hope to see you next time.
Yeah, as I said, feel free to reach out to me whenever you want, and I might not instantly respond, but I definitely will. So
I do have to switch over to another meeting. Thanks you all again very much. We'll stop the recording now. Tim, thanks a ton.
I will be around for a couple more minutes.